Awesome. All right, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. I am so pumped for today's episode. I have Nina Sossaman-Pogue today with me to have a very, very crucial conversation about identity, reformation, high achievers, success, thriving through struggles and problems and overcoming obstacles and all of that fun stuff. So I'm going to give a little bit of background about her before we do get started. Nina and I have very similar stories from the athletics background, but she was a gymnast, I was a swimmer. She is a sought-after speaker, two-time best-selling author, and podcast host. And where the gymnastics comes in is when she was 13, she actually left home to train. And she made the USA gymnastics team. She graced magazine covers as an Olympic hopeful alongside Mary Lou Retton, but she failed to make the Olympic team. She did go off to LSU, and then she suffered an injury that ended her gymnastics career. She then went on to a 20-year career as an Emmy award-winning journalist and news anchor, then into corporate leadership, and now has a successful business in serving others and helping individuals and organizations to thrive through challenges and reach new levels of success. So I'm really excited to rack her brain and have a fun conversation today. Nina, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to get started. There's a little intro in there about your story and about your athletics career, but I want to talk about the identity formation and reformation, how you became athlete to news anchor, and then it was news anchor to corporate leader, and now it was corporate leader to entrepreneur. So I want to hear a little bit about the transition from your athletics career into your career as a news anchor. And I just want you to detail some of the emotions maybe that you were going through, some of the struggles, and how you worked through that.
Yeah, great question, Gabby. And I think all of us go through reinventing ourselves every day. I mean, we're not the person we were yesterday, but I had some big moments in my life that really forced me to redefine myself. So one, as you mentioned, not making the Olympic team. I remember having to go back to my high school and just being so embarrassed walking down the halls of my high school. This was a failure. I let down my family and my friends. I mean, everybody knew that it was my coaches. So I just felt like a failure at the ripe old age of 17. And I did regroup. I had some good people around me, and the youngest of 4 kids, I needed a college scholarship to go to college. So I regrouped, trained hard, and went to, as you mentioned, LSU, big SEC school, strong in gymnastics back then, just won the national championships. And then, but even back then, a great gymnastics program. And I competed for them, was back on top of my game, found my tribe again of other athletes, people like yourself who, once all the swimmers and the tennis players and the gymnasts and the volleyball players and track, we were friends. So I was back with people who were training hard, pushing themselves, and I felt like I'd found my tribe again. But then I blew out my knee. And it's a career-ending injury. I threw a beam dismount that my coach had told me not to throw. I was feeling really confident that day. So that's a whole other thing, and you can imagine where that led me. So I do this beam dismount because I was feeling cocky, and I blow out my knee. And it's career-ending injury. And again, now I just think my life is over. I'm not just sad and depressed and all those things. I'm miserable. To keep my scholarship, I had to work in the laundry room because back then you had to work for the university in some way to keep your athletic scholarship. So they put me to work in the laundry room, and not like washing little leotards and stuff. It was men's basketball in there too, in the PMAC at LSU. So I always say my claim to fame was almost, I washed Shaquille O'Neal's jockstrap. Like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I'm getting to your answer, but it's kind of a fun story, that transition, because everybody's got a story. So I'm in the laundry room, I'm super miserable, and I would change out the laundry and then crutch outside and sit outside and wait, for the thing to go, to the laundry to finish. And all the other athletes are walking to practice and doing stuff. And I was like, pariah, no one wanted to come near me. I was, one, miserable, and two, I was kind of the example of what could happen, if you have an injury. So I was pretty unhappy and not fun to be around. And then one day, this athletic advisor, and they didn't have mental health advisors like they do now, but an athletic academic advisor stops by and says, "Hey, how you doing, Nina?" And I said, I'm sure something snarky like, "Perfect, can't you tell?" But he started stopping by day after day and then had conversations with me. And he was the first person in my life who had asked me, what do you want to do after gymnastics? Because I had never thought about it. I mean, I had been an athlete. Back then, it was, this is the 80s. It was my bumper sticker, it was my sweatshirt.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, it's your TikTok, your Instagram, it's your everything. So, but back then it was how I identified. I'd always been a gymnast since as long as I could remember. I started when I was 4. So that's who I was. So I do this cool timeline math we can talk about as we get going. But that transition, a few things happened. One, he asked me what I wanted to do later, and I'd never thought about it. So he became an impetus for me to think about what else I was good at.
Yeah.
And through those conversations, he said, you could work in the sports information department and do the stories on all the other athletes, the swimmers and the women's basketball team and other people, the minor sports that people were not doing stories on. And that's where I started. And that's how I got into journalism. And that first time I walked into a newsroom, I was like, I love this, because you'll know as an athlete, it's challenging. It's different every day. You keep getting better. You never get it completely right. So I love that piece of being a journalist. And then that parlayed itself into, being a reporter, a sports reporter, political reporter, general assignments. And then later I became a news anchor, and very much leaned into that role as part of a community and did that for many years. So that was that first transition in my life.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think it's so funny how, until maybe you had thought about it a little bit beforehand, but until that man had asked you the question, it's like you don't really stop to think until sometimes you're forced into that box to like sit with your imagination and your, ideas about your future and your vision and everything like that. And so I guess in that downtime, like in that period of, okay, I'm miserable and I don't know who I am, quote unquote, anymore. I don't know what my next step is. Because here, as an athlete, as well as in school, you think about all of your steps being articulated for you, knowing what to expect, where you're going to go, an idea of, okay, here's how I'm going to get there. Then you have all of that stripped away from you. Then you have, okay, college, what do I do next? And then I think there are so many people who are feeling that weight right now, in the younger generation, that are like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I'm almost graduating college and I have no idea. I've got this degree that I don't know what to do with. And so I think using your connection to sports, going into the journalism through that tunnel, it was obviously a groundedness in your values and what you enjoyed to do. But how did you connect those dots? Like, how did you take away the label of gymnast athlete and use the things that you infused into your sport, still connected you to your spirit, your heart, and who you were, and translated that almost into a different language? Kind of walk me through connecting those dots.
Yeah, and I have a framework that many years later, 30 years later from removed from gymnastics, that I put together. But back then, I didn't know I was doing this framework. It's taken a lot of time to go back and really identify this. But the answer to your question, I didn't know what I was good at outside of gymnastics, and that's repeated throughout my life. Even when I went from television to tech and to a
Yeah.
software company, I'm like, I didn't know what I was good at. And one of the things that for anybody going through a tough time, or thinking about what's my next move. And I have 3 kids in their 20s, so I know this world. All went to college and had the same journey,
Oh, yeah.
and figuring it out. So I think one of the things, you're what I call stacking, and I'm sure other people on your program have talked about it. What am I good at? Taking your skills out of being an athlete to the other pieces of that sport you didn't see. So here's what gymnastics had taught me. I could fall down and get back up. I would and smile, and like things could go wrong, and I could fall down and get back up and smile, and keep dancing. And I was good at being coached. I could step in and I could learn things quickly. I could learn really fast and really quickly. So if and in journalism, one day you're covering like a hot air balloon championships, and next day you're covering a murder trial. Like, you have to switch gears and think fast. And I knew I was good at that. And the year that Mary Lou Retton won her first USA championships, I won Miss Congeniality. So I knew,
Really? That's so
yeah.
cool.
So I knew I was good with people. And then I was like everybody's cheerleader. Like, I love other people's success. And when you're a journalist, you cover people's success and their failures. And so I loved when I was at a gymnastics meet, I would cheer for the people who were winning, and I would build up the people who were losing. That's just innately part of me. So that worked in journalism as well. That's what you cover. You don't cover the in between, the everyday. In journalism, you're covering somebody's best day. They just won something. They won an election. They won an award. Something big happened in their life. They won the lottery. You cover those stories and you cover their worst days. Their child was killed in an accident, or
Yep.
they're, lost an election, or something big has happened and they're caught up in a scandal. So I knew those things about me. And I can look back now and see that that's what was pulled out of me in a newsroom. That's what connected
Yeah.
those pieces of me that I was really good at. And like you, I'm coachable. I don't crumble when something goes wrong. So anyone who's an athlete who listens to your podcast, I just want to encourage you. You bring something to the table way outside of your sport because you're coachable. When I was an executive in a software company, I had 200-300 people that reported to me. I would hire an athlete 5 times over anybody else because I knew they wouldn't crumble if I said, okay, this is close, but let's make this change and do this a little different. They wouldn't think they were being attacked because I wasn't perfect. They totally got, okay, I'll make it different and do it different. And it just was the productivity, that piece that you
Yes.
bring to the table as an athlete. You may not even realize it, but it's a strength.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that when you initiated your answer to this question, you're like, listen, this is 30 years ago and I'm working through the framework to this day.
Yeah.
I think that the things that most qualify us to serve others are the experiences that we've been through, of course, but sometimes it takes a little while to piece those components together to put together, quote unquote, a framework, if you will, to then coach and guide other people through similar transitions. And so I do think that there is so much value in you just sharing your story, but then also reapplying the framework to, okay, your past, but your future, other transitions that you've been to in your life. So I think that even if you're not an athlete, you can take a lot of wisdom from that.
Yeah. And if I
So
can jump in, oh, go ahead.
no, you're totally fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so if I can jump in on that, I
Yeah,
also, when I went from television to tech, I had another one of those moments like, what transfers? What am I even good at? At
yeah,
that point, I'd been in TV for so long as a news anchor for 20 years, telling people stories and being Nina and having great hair on TV. And like, there's things that you just like, yeah, it helped to be attractive. It helped to be all those things. But I'm like, what else am I good at besides
yeah.
looking good and reading a teleprompter? So I had to also go back and kind of dig deep on what I was good at there. And what I did, because I really didn't know at that point, and I was almost 40 at the time when I went from TV to tech. So this journey always is going, folks. It never ends. You're always reinventing and figuring out what's the next best version of me. And I scheduled coffees with people that I admired. And I said, you have watched me on TV. You sat on a charity board with me. Our kids played sports together. And I would have a coffee with them and go, if you had to hire me today, and I didn't want them to hire me. I didn't want to work for their companies. But I said, if you had to hire me today, what would you hire me for? You see what I do. You see what I'm good at. What would you hire me for in your world? And one was in marketing. What would you hire me for? One was a big law firm. What would you hire me for? One was just she ran the women's center in our community, and she was a big international. She was part of the international, women in business. And I'm like,
Wow.
what would you hire me for? So I had those conversations, and all 3 of them were really different. They all saw me very differently. Like the marketing guys, like, you don't know marketing. I would have you pitching car commercials and carpet companies. And I was like, okay, shoot me now. I don't want to do that. Um, and the other person was like, okay, you're really good with people. I would have you, working this and working towards managing a bunch of humans. And the other person, the attorney said, I would pull you in a room with all of our attorneys and have you teach them how to interact with the media and how to do. So very different, but it started to make me think outside of my own box. So if you're at a point where you're not sure what your skills are, I highly recommend you find some people you admire. Tell them you don't want to work for them, but will you have a coffee with them? So make sure it's somebody you don't want to work for, and have a coffee with them and go, what would you hire me for? And it was really, really telling.
I love that. I've never heard of anyone do that before, ever. I am very excited to use that one and also advise others to use that because sometimes we can't see through our own rose colored glasses. Like we think
Right.
that we're being perceived by other people with X, Y, and Z labels. But sometimes the way that we think others see us is so drastically different than the way others truly do see us. And I think there is a lot of value in being able to connect to your heart and what you believe your strengths are and what you're good at. Whether you want to take a personality assessment or you just want to sit with yourself with a pen and paper and you want to really detail inside your head and your heart what's going on. I think that there is so much added value when you extend that olive branch and ask others how they perceive you and your strengths and what you bring to the table. But specifically, the what would you hire me for? I mean, I've had conversations with loved ones, family members, friends, when I was first getting started in this business. You know, what do you feel I am most called to help others with, right? So it's a very similar question, but I think in this industry, in this, you know, idea of career and business, what would you hire me for?
Yeah, if you had to hire me, like pure
Yeah,
nepotism, or somebody has a gun to your head, like you have to hire me, what would you have me do? And it was
love
really
that.
a different question, and I learned a lot about. That's how they knew they really. I mean, if they actually thought I had these skills or what I could do, because in some
Yeah,
instances, what I thought they were going to say, because I thought I was really good at some things, they were like, "No, you don't
yeah.
know that at all. I would totally not hire you for that."
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly. I mean,
Hmm.
we've all got our strengths, we've all got our weaknesses, but I think, you know, this idea of leveraging your strengths and really being able to recreate, reformat your identity grounded in those strengths, because they're all going to always going to be able to be translated to different positions in different industries, whatever. But yeah, I
And
think that's so cool.
And they change over time.
Yeah.
So, like, that was and when I was about to be 40, when I switched into tech. By the time I left tech in my 50s, and I was like, what am I going to do? What am I good at? That was a different process for me. That
Mm,
was more of what you said earlier, where I sat and got really quiet and thought, what do I want 5 years from now to look like? Now I had more opportunity too, because I had some financial freedom and I'd done a lot of different things. And my skill stacking, I had a ton of experience and things. So at that point, I could go, okay, 5 years from now, do I want to be sitting in an office? Do I want to be managing a bunch of teams? Do I want to live in a big city? Do I want to sit in a little quiet place by the beach with a window and just like write and like there's all different things. Do I want to be around people or no people? It was a really different vibe. And I got all the way to really specific, like I want to have a window and I want a chair near the window where I can write and think. And I'm there now. So 5 years later, I came up with what that is and I worked my way towards it. So there's a big part of it's really hard to sit quiet though and think about that and then start. It helps you once you see that vision in your head.
yeah.
Obviously, it helps you start making decisions about yes or no, things you accept, because it wasn't
Yeah.
getting me towards that vision. So I could go, that's so exciting and the money's good and all that, but it's not going to get me to my 5 year vision. And there's always the option
Absolutely.
to change the 5 year vision. That's
Always.
you, it's your life. Anyway,
Yeah.
so those are my big transition moments.
Yeah. And something that I feel is really important to note is that this is not a one-time session that you sit down and within an hour it's like, "Oh, I've got all the answers."
Oh
I
my
think it
gosh,
can
no.
be there are times that I have sat down day in, day out for, you know, weeks, strings of weeks at a time, and it's like, "I don't know. I just don't know. Like there's nothing coming out of here. There's nothing coming out of here because I'm disconnected from here. I'm disconnected from here. I don't know." And so I think that the consistency and the persistence is so key, because even in the creative process, in the reinvention process, it is not linear and it is not always going to flow. Like you're going to have writer's block, you're going to have creator's block, you're going to have next step block, whatever you want to call it. So I think that putting the question out there and then planting the seed in your mind, in your heart, and knowing that you're not going to come up with the answer immediately all the time is so critical, because once you put the question out there, okay, then you attune your vibration to be able to accept the messages and the downloads and the feelings and the intuitive kind of nature of, all right, now that I have positioned myself into the opportunity of figuring this out, now I'm more aligned with, okay, when I see this, now I know. Now I feel this feels right. Or I don't know. I think that you can't sit down and expect everything is going to come immediately, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what I will say is, you don't have to have all the answers, folks. You're never going to
Yeah.
have them. I still don't, and I'm
Yep.
old. Like you're never going to have all
Yep.
the answers. It's continually reevaluating who you are and the world around you and what the opportunities are. The world has changed. The opportunities change. My daughter works in AI. That wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
Like when I was young, I would never. She got a degree in data analytics and she works in AI, but it's so funny. So here's a great example. She's 25 and she'll call me every once in a while and she'll be like walking down the street. She's going to hate it that I tell this. She'll be walking down the street in New York, just like finishing up some big, where she had a call and she crushed it. And she's like, Mom, I just called to tell you that 20-year-old Emma thinks 25-year-old Emma is crushing it right now. She would be so proud of me. Because I would always say, when she was 20, I was like, just picture it. What does 25-year-old Emma want to be doing? And she used to say, I want to be in New York and I want to have a job and have an apartment and live that life. And so she can see it now. And she'll call me and she'll go, 20-year-old Emma is looking at me right now going, you are crushing it, girl. Other days she calls me in a puddle and she's like, I suck at everything, like all of us do. But
that's what moms are for, man. They got to hype you up and then they got to lift you up when you're in the puddle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the high achievers that you work with because, we've talked about, okay, connecting to your values, what you're good at. So often I feel myself translating what I feel I bring to the table in terms of what other people deem, okay, this is high achieving, this is productive, this is output oriented. Like, I am a high achiever to my core. Constantly checking off things on my to-do list. I will drive myself into the grave trying to check things off and achieve and accomplish. But I have released the part of myself that is trying to dissociate from my high achiever. And I've come to the point where it's like, this is a part of who I am. And I love this about me. And I think that it initiates a lot of very, very cool opportunities and relationships and things in my life because this is a part of me and I love it and I appreciate it. Doesn't mean that it's always easy to deal with what's going on up here because it's constant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about your work with high achievers and this success cycle.
Yeah, so important because once you realize you're a high achiever like you, and I do this if I'm in a room of executive leadership at a big company or the director level people in a big company, or even just people who are in the weeds and working their asses off. Like if they're all, I talk about to hard workers, so people like yourself who are constantly what I call up in the ante. Like, what's the next best thing? I'm going to continue to grow. So here's the cycle that we all do. And wherever you are, maybe you're not as, high achieving as you are, driven as you are, Gabby, but maybe some of your listeners are just like, I just want to get to the next thing. I just want to figure out what the next thing is. Here's what's happening because you can now put yourself in the high achiever success cycle, or you can just call it the success cycle if you don't want to label yourself a high achiever, but you are. So here's what happens. You set a goal. You do a vision board, you have a KPI, depending on what interests you. You have your KROs, your KPIs, or a metric you have to hit. If you're in sales, it's a number you have to hit. You have your target. So you set that. And then you begin this cycle. So picture that at the top of the circle. And from there, you go around. So here's what happens. You set that target, and then you have to learn, what do I need to do to make this happen? A few years ago, okay, here we go. Here, I'll give you my own example. During the pandemic, I gained the full COVID-19 and then some. So I was giant. And, it just became this long time of Netflix and drinking wine, and I got giant. Anyway, so I set a goal. So binge watching stuff and drinking wine was not the best workout plan for me. Anyway, so I set a goal, I'm like, what? I want to lose this weight. I decided keto. So that's the example I can use for this circle. So you have your thing that you've set a goal out to do, and you have to learn, how could I get to this goal? How can I get for me this weight loss or whatever? Or maybe it's a promotion you're trying to get, whatever you're trying to get. You learn, what can get me there. And then you try some things to see if it works. And then once you try them and they work, you get to work and you do the work because you want it. So you're going around this circle. Now you got to work and you're doing it and you really want this thing. So you're persistent. You're persistent and you're going to keep at it and you're going to keep at it. And towards the end, there's always that friction when you really want something, so you've learned some things, you tried some things, you've gotten to work, you're really persistent. And then right at the end, there's some friction. And so you have that grit. I'm going to do the thing. And then boom, you do it. You do it. You make it. You achieve the thing, right? Yay, me. I lost the weight. You bought the house. You get the promotion, whatever it is that you were going for. Yay, you achieve it. And then what do? You set a new goal and you go around again, dogs. So yeah, you go around again. So every time you like set these big goals. Or if you're in sales, you know it, you get your quarterly targets and then you get your annual target, you hit the number, and then you go to President's Club or whatever, and then they, hey, okay, here's your number for next year, and you're just in it again. So the understanding, if you are a high achiever, that that is the loop that you are in, and you will always be in it. You're going to try to step away from it, but you are not okay with the status quo. You're the kids that jumped in. Like I sometimes think of it as a merry-go-round, you know, the old metal merry-go-rounds on the playgrounds. Like you jump in and then you spin until it gets real fast. You get thrown off in the dirt and then it slows down. You jump on again. We're the kids on the playground. We keep jumping back on over and over. So the high achiever piece is the people who aren't okay with wherever it is right now. I'm not okay with just this amount of learning or just this house or just this car or just this. Some of it's monetary and some of it's who we are as a person or the amount of people we want to impact or affect in life or the people in our life that we want to take care of. We're just not okay with things exactly how they are. We want more. And that more piece is this upward projection. And that's that high achievers. You keep going higher. And as you go higher, you're on this circle to get you to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it 1000% makes sense. I think that the place that you're approaching the circle from is the most critical component to your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your goals, your relationship with other people, with life in general. Because I used to come from a place where I was trying to prove myself and I was tying my worth to my achievements and my accomplishments and how productive I could be, how many things I could get done, how many, credentials I could put next to my name or whatever you want to, call it. And so that place that I was coming from was a lack of belief in my self-worth just because of who I am. And I think now that I have kind of removed myself from that, I've done some soul searching and I've done some healing. I have now approached my high achiever with a curiosity of not only what I'm capable of, really a connection to my heart and my potential rather than my lack of or my having to prove myself. It's a curiosity to express my creative energy, to express my generator in me. If you're into human design, that's my human design. And so, it's more of like a connection to my potential and the world around me. And that's how I have started to really process this high achiever circle, this chart, if you will, from a place that is grounded in who I am versus a lack of, do I even know who I am without all of these achievements, without all of these goals checked off next to my name,
And I sometimes I'll ask people. It's a fun little exercise. I'll do it from a stage when I'm speaking with a whole group of people, and I'll say, okay, when you hear like she's a success or he's a success, what pictures come in your head? And
Mm.
people like the big house, the big company, the boat, the vacations, like they're a success. And they throw out all these different things that they think is success. And I'm like, okay, now when I say he's led a successful lifetime or she's had a successful lifetime, what does that image look like? And they all get real quiet and they're like, yeah, that's really different. That is really different. So what our own version of success is up to us. And I'm big into creating a successful lifetime. You're going to hit the one, you're going to get the cars or the house or the boat or the things. That's not going to be your happiness. Maybe something you need, like you really want, great, go after it, do the thing. But you'll continue to level up. You're going to continue to want more. And you got to figure out where that want more is. And that more doesn't have to be financial at some point. It will be different. It will feel different.
Absolutely.
What you want success to look like. It's like the exercise where someone hands you a Ziploc bag full of Legos. And they're like, they give it to the whole group. Everybody gets their own Ziploc bag and like, okay, make something. And everybody makes something different because what you think is success, like that's success. They made something. What you're building with the Legos you're dealt in life is different from the person next to you. Like your vision of what
Yeah.
this is done. Look how cool this is. Like I did a thing. Your I did a thing that you get excited about is really different from somebody else's.
Yeah. I've never heard the Legos in the Ziploc bag. I'm learning so much. I love
Oh,
this.
fun. That's a fun one.
Yeah. Okay. So, what about stress during this cycle? How do you manage stress yourself? I'd like to just hear a little bit about when you're under overwhelm, maybe in the past when you felt burnt out. what do you do to mitigate some of your stress? And I guess instead of thinking about, managing it after the fact, how do you almost stave some of that off to keep yourself in a position of grounded? Okay, I'm from a level-headed approach. Yes, you got things going on that are going to pile on every now and then, but how do you handle and manage and mitigate your stress?
Yeah, and I want to be very clear that I still have overwhelm. I still have
Yeah.
that doesn't go away. I still will pile on too much and have overwhelm. And yes, you could have a glass of wine or a gummy. I mean, there's those kind of quick fixes for that. I'm not going to lie.
Oh,
But
absolutely, girl.
but but those are these quick fixes. The healthy things that you can do, and what I talk about from the stage is not that that we can do to handle stress in a more meaningful way. Are a couple of things. I do this, and this is part of my framework. So my framework is this: whatever this is that you're dealing with, I'll take you through it real quick, a quick and skinny version.
Yeah.
Whatever this is that you're dealing with, capital T, capital H, capital I, like this thing you wake up like, or this I have to handle. I can't do this. This is too much. This is stressing me out. Whatever your this is, I always say take it, and you can put it on a piece of paper. Okay, you draw a line on a piece of paper across horizontal. Turn your paper horizontal and put a line across it, and you shrink it down to, it's not the whole piece of paper. You don't write this on the whole piece of paper, which you want to because you're dealing with it. And that's how big it feels. But you put it on that line on the dot of how old you are right now. Like just this. It is just that. It's not your whole big, messy, marvelous life. It's just where you are right now. And it's this that you're dealing with. And I say, so put it there and put it in perspective of it's not your whole life. It just feels like it. And then I ask people to, circle it, because when something happens, you feel really alone. And one of my biggest things is don't go it alone when you're in a stressful situation or if you feel the overwhelm. People who have big success, and I've done a lot of research around this for entrepreneurs and executives, athletes have coaches,
Yep.
executives have mentors, they have mastermind groups. We don't go it alone when we want to have big success. So that circle is pull some people into your circle with you, once you circle it on that timeline. And then I have people draw two lines, one on front of it and one back of it. And so that's called isolate. So it's timeline, pull in humans, HIS. So it's this. So, and then you have to isolate it, put a line on each side. And you can't think about what happened before or what happens after. You got to figure out what you're dealing with right away. And you've probably heard this because any good therapist will tell you, if you're thinking about the past, the woulda, shoulda, coulda, done something different, shouldn't have married that guy, shouldn't have
Yep.
taken this job, shouldn't have gone out that night, whatever. That's where depression lives. And then if you're in the future, what ifs and the doomsday scenarios that we do to ourselves, that's where anxiety lives. So I say, draw a line. Let's figure out exactly what we're dealing with. And then I say, then on that same piece of paper, right at the bottom, this is, and we have to call it something. And that's that language in our head. So getting rid of some of the self-sabotaging language that we do, the overgeneralization, this always happens to me, catastrophizing, this will never work. I mean, there's a bunch of those lists of self-sabotaging language. So I say, put it all in that. Now, that's a big, long framework that when you're in the middle of it and you're in overwhelm, it's hard to sit down and do, but you can do it on the back of a napkin. It does make whatever you're feeling you're dealing with feel a little smaller in your big life. But the biggest thing that you can do in a moment when you're feeling overwhelmed, and I do this, I stop and I breathe and I listen to my breath. Like so many people will tell you, it actually works. And I remind myself, a lion's not chasing me right now. I'm fine. Like when you're wherever you are listening to this, take a deep breath. You're fine. There's not a lion chasing you. You're not in harm's way at this very moment. Like we have to get ourselves to think, okay, I'm a human on the planet just trying to figure a thing out. And yeah, it seems like a lot to me, but it is just a thing I'm trying to figure out. It's not life or death. No one's chasing me right now. Now, when it's a financial thing you're involved in, or if you're caught up in a scandal, it can feel like it's life or death. But the reality is, if you sit quietly with it for a minute, there's no lion chasing you. You just got to think your way forward. And the big picture in this is we do the timeline piece. The isolate piece is so important because, and I'll say this over and over again, it's okay to not be okay. In the overwhelm, I always remind myself, oh, I took on too much. Like, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way. Okay to not be okay, not okay to stay that way. So let yourself feel the overwhelm and go, wow, I took on a lot. I took on too much. No lion's chasing me right now. I'm okay. And it's up to me to get out of this, but maybe I need to just sit here in it for a minute and feel this feeling and go, wow, okay, how'd I get here? Like, okay, what can I actually do to move forward? So a lot of pieces to that. Really long answer to your question, but the biggies when I'm in overwhelm, it's sit quietly and breathe and remind myself I'm not being chased by a lion. And it's okay to not be okay. I don't have to have all the answers right now. It's just not okay to stay that way. I need to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the framework so much. I think every component is so critical. And also, when you're in this overwhelm, feel into the feeling and don't reevaluate your life on a bad day. Like,
No.
overwhelm, stress, you said it, it's never going to go away. We're never going to get to a point in this life where we are free of problems completely. That's not the point.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that, yeah, recognizing that there is no one out there, no matter how successful, no matter how seemingly happy or put together, organized, fulfilled, whatever it is that you want to be and you see other people have, it does not mean that they are completely free of struggle, that they're free of overwhelm, free of stress. It's all
Right.
about how you manage and work through it. And sometimes that just means letting yourself have a shit day, crying yourself to sleep and letting it
Yes.
all out and not figuring out, and the answer to the problem, like being in the unknown. It's okay. Being in the overwhelm is okay, but you don't need to reevaluate your life on a bad day.
Correct. I'll always tell my kids that. I'm like, just go have a shit day. Just
Yep.
a terrible, horrible, no good day. Just go have a shit day and just go for a walk in the park and go, this is my shit day. Like this is the world. Bring it, world. I'm in the middle of it. Like, really? This is what I have. This is life. Just let
Right,
it
right.
be that. Tomorrow, you can get back on it. But sometimes you just kind of gotta throw your hands up and go, wow, this is really not a good day. And then you can just let it be what it is. You don't have to fix everything all the
Yeah.
time. And I will tell you, it took me a long time to get to this point. I wanted it all and wanted to fix everything. And I love fixing people and I
Oh,
love
yeah.
fixing things. I'm a fixer. But my goals to change through the years. But I thought once my house was paid for, my kids' college was paid for, all the cars were paid for, and I had like a certain number of amount of money in the bank,
Mm.
like, and everybody was healthy and everything was paid for, that like life would just be easy. And it isn't. I did that. I actually, my goal was to get it by the time I was 60, and I did it early in my 50s. The house was paid for, the kids' college was paid for. I'm healthy. My mom's healthy, family, my husband's healthy. Like, and then there's still this, what is my next thing? And you still worry about what the next thing is. And did I do it right? And what if I don't do the next thing right? Like it always is there. So your
Always.
ability to kind of go, okay, this is actually my big, messy, marvelous life. I'm doing my best. I'm making it, I think, what I want it to be. I could change my mind. And just keep moving forward. And you get one. You get one life. Go make it into something that you want it to be. There'll be seasons where you are just heads down and working your ass off and not doing things that you like to do because that's the season you're in. You got to just work and be heads down. Then there'll be seasons where you can pick your head up and go, okay, this is really fun. And I worked so hard there that now I get to do the thing. And then there'll be other seasons where it's a little easier, but and I think that you'll look back. I look back now and go, I'm glad those seasons where I like worked, 15-hour days and killed myself. I'm actually proud of those.
Yep.
Showed that I could do it, and I made a ton of money.
Yeah.
I was proud of those days. Do I want to do them now? No, I did it already. So
Yeah.
it will change. I'm saying that because you have young people who listen. It will
1000%.
change, and you do not need all the answers. Just sit down and go, what is you 5 years from now? Just take it out in 5-year increments. What does the you 5 years from now need you to do today to be happy? Picture you 5 years from now, and what does that version of you, need you to do today to get there? That's all. And do that.
I am loving this so much. And just the way that you speak and the power and intention behind every word that you use is so palpable. Like I can feel your energy coming through my laptop right now, and it is inspiring. And I'm so thankful. And I think that every story, every analogy that you have used has been so potent. And I'm so grateful, Nina. And I
Thanks,
think,
Gabby. It's so good to be here. I thoroughly appreciate that.
yeah, I think too, this idea of, okay, you could have everything on paper that looks like you shouldn't have any stress in the world, but we're going to create the stress no matter what, because, we live up here. We have brains that are really awesome and help us to get things done and achieve our goals and be happy and relate to people. But these brains are also the, okay, what's the next step? These are the thinkers. These are the create the problem sometimes thinker brains. But I really, that's been one of my biggest lessons in my last year of my life, because I thought the whole same thing. If I didn't have this super stressful job in management and I wasn't putting out little fires every day and I didn't have to worry about X, Y, and Z at home, that I would be so much happier. My stress would go away. I could be at peace. And I literally left my corporate job and I moved to Costa Rica and I volunteered off the grid on a permaculture farm for almost 4 months.
How cool.
I was there in Costa Rica, amazing experience, but I realized that wherever I was going, I was coming with me. And my stress that I created when I was in my corporate job, I blamed it on my job. I blamed it on the things that I had to do daily and weekly and monthly that were causing me, the overwhelm. But then I'm in Costa Rica. I'm in the paradise, literal paradise. I don't, quote unquote, really have responsibilities other than tending to the garden, cooking community meals, helping them with their marketing tasks, right? Fun things. My life didn't depend on it. No lion is chasing me. But I am creating the stress for myself in terms of, you have all this downtime. You better use this to advance your career. You better do X, Y, and Z while you have the time. And it was constant every single day. I'm waking up in paradise thinking to myself, you have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. If you don't use your time, oh my God, you're not going to be blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my God, I literally could not get myself to shut up until I finally just accepted it. And I sat with myself and I was like, I can't blame anybody else other than the patterns that I have allowed to run my life and my emotions for this long. And I'm not going to demonize them, but I have to come face to face with them. And I have to look into the shadow self and like, where is this coming from? It was the proving myself. It was the constant advancement, the, dis-ease inside my heart of like, I'm not enough. I'm going to lose out on time. I'm going to fail, blah, blah, blah. It's all these things, right? And so, taking that into these seasons of your life is also, you have to flow with the seasons, because yes, you are going to have seasons where you are head down to the grindstone and you're working really, really hard. It's important to have those seasons. But when you're in the seasons of, let me let up a little bit, let me appreciate what's going on around me, let me be instead of do, one of the biggest regrets I have in the last couple of years of my life is trying to make a season that was meant for appreciating and exploring and be about doing, about producing, about advancing. And if you're in a season, you have to recognize that it's okay to be in that season, because a new season will inevitably come next. And the cycle is going to repeat itself. So yeah, a couple of stories in there, but you go with you wherever you go and flow with the seasons. Be like the trees.
So good. And I will tell you that, I always say, you are the common denominator. You are it in all of your stories that you're telling. I still, to this day, I have a little mirror. It's a little piece of a glass mirror that we did a leadership offsite, and someone handed us, the CEO of the company, and we were getting ready to do a big IPO and everybody was stressed. And he had all these little pieces like you would buy in a craft store, little tiny pieces of mirror. And he handed them out to all of us. And we had to put them on our laptops. And he said, if you're frustrated or if there's a problem, I need you to look in that mirror and go, oh, wait, that's me. That's my job. Yeah. So to this day, I have it there. And I'm like, if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you're stressed, like, oh, yeah, you're creating that. That's me. I have this little piece of like you go to a craft shop, a little piece of a mirror that you would think of. And I do. I think that way often. And you said, you're the common denominator, and it's you that keeps doing it. But I will say something about the seasons. Even when you're in the season, when you're like head down and like just blinders on and working your ass off, you can be happy in that too. You can be really proud of yourself. You should be really proud of yourself that you can take that on, that you can do that thing, that you're being really valuable in the role that you're in. I want people to feel good about themselves even when they're in that. I wish I'd have been nicer to myself during that season of my life, because I was really good at it, and it paid for my kids' school, and to go to college, and it created the life that I live now. So I'm proud of that woman, and I wish I'd have been a little nicer to her on the journey and went, yeah, you were working 15-hour days, but look at you, girl. You go, girl. You're doing the thing. Like, you're crushing it. You're exhausted and but you're doing jumping on the little plane and going to New York and closing the deals and doing the thing. Like, there's something in that yes, it's hard, but you should be really proud of yourself if that's the season that you're in. Don't discount that.
Yes. And that idea of you once dreamed of being exactly where you are now. Like, I remember that thinking, okay, I want to have the corporate job. I want to go to work and I
Yes.
want to work long hours and I kind of want the stress and I want to be on phone calls every day. And, I liked it. It was like we watched these movies kind of growing up and we have this idea of success and it's this Wall Street, like your daughter, Emma, she's walking down. She just had a great, great call, closed the deal, whatever. And she's literally in New York. She's living the dream, right? But it's okay for that dream to change. And
Right.
that, I think, is the key. It's like, listen, you dreamed about this at one point. At least let the past version of you who thought that this was it appreciate the time. And then you can worry about, changing the season and changing the dream, whatever. But like, let those past versions of you that once dreamed about this appreciate it.
100%. Remember, sometimes I'll tell people, especially when it's my own kids or people that I mentor and stuff, I'm like, do you remember the day you called and you were so excited you got this job? Like, there were 5 other people that wanted it and they chose you. You were so excited. Like, this was the goal. You got this job. So just take it back to that minute and go, you've been doing it for a few years now, but you really wanted this. This was a challenge you put in front of yourself. You put yourself out there and you got it. So sometimes we have to go back and look at our former selves and sometimes we have to take ourselves forward. But yes, 100% what you said.
I love that. Well, I'm on fire and I am so happy that we got the chance to talk today. Nina, if there's anything else that you would like to share, please do. But I also want to give you an opportunity to plug your information. If anybody wants to follow up with you after this episode, check out your socials, what you offer. Please go ahead and introduce that as well.
Well, thank you for the time with you. You're amazing. I can't wait to see what all the things you do, what your next chapter is, as I say. I always say your next chapter could be your best chapter. You just don't know. And my that's one of my final thoughts, folks listening. Your next chapter could absolutely be your best chapter. You just don't know yet. And my always what I like to end with, because some people who listen to podcasts, I find, are people who are struggling and searching for something. I will tell you, it is okay to not be okay, folks. It is okay to not be okay, but it is not okay to stay that way. And it is up to you. Obviously, you're listening to a podcast. You're trying. It is up to you to do the work to get yourself out of whatever it is you're in. So that would be my takeaway. You can follow me on social media. I'm on all the socials. I'm on Instagram. I just started doing some TikTok. My team is younger than me and they're making me do ridiculous things. So stand by for that. It's not I think I'm hilarious, so there's some funny stuff on there, but their sense of funny and my sense of funny kind of collide. I have a team of folks in their 20s and they're hilarious. They're like my people. And then my executive folks who are my age in their 50s kind of vetted against. So anyway, you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram is where I am daily. And I do daily motivation on Instagram. Motivation's like a shower, folks. You need it every day. Inspiration's planting a seed that lasts a long time, but motivation, like, it wears off. You need more. So daily motivation on Instagram, and it's Nina Speaks, Nina_SPEAKS, and that's broken up too. We thought it'd be clever back in the day, but it was not so much. But you'll find me, Nina Speaks on Instagram, and I'm just launching, and I'm not sure when this will air, but I'm launching what's called my Now What workshop. So when you have these now what moments in your life, you get laid off, you get fired, you're going through a divorce, some big breakup or a death in the family, like a big, or you're caught in a scandal or something. It's this now what workshop. It just gets you from, holy crap, this just happened, now what, to thinking so you can move yourself in a positive direction. It's really fun to me on camera, some videos and some workshops. It's quick. It's not a lot of, heavy thinking, but super helpful. And that's launching. So you can find me with my Now What workshop as well.
That is so exciting. I'm going to link all of your social accounts in the description of this episode. And if there are links to this workshop, send those over. I'll put them in as well.
Fantastic. I will.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nina. And I will be in touch. Thank you. You're amazing.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me on. Have a great one.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, you guys. Have a wonderful day.